Hello friends, in this video we're going to discuss about integration runtime and the different types of integration runtime that are available to us in Azure Data Factory. As I mentioned in my earlier videos, Azure integration runtime is nothing but the compute infrastructure that provides the environment to run our pipelines that we're going to define in Azure Data Factory. So it is responsible for all the data movement and the activity dispatch and various other functionalities to connect to the linked services that we're going to define to get the data from various data stores. In a simpler way, I can mention it's like an virtual machine in which all our logic that are we are defining in Azure Data Factory will be executed. So coming to different type of Azure integration runtime, Azure is offering basically three types of integration runtimes within Azure Data Factory. As we can see my screen, I am in Management Hub, this Manage tab, where I have an option to create and manage the integration runtimes under connections. So once I click New here in the Integration Runtime tab, I will be able to see the various options that are being offered to us to create the integration runtimes. If you see here, basically it is segregated into two categories. One is to perform the data flow or the data movement activities that we are going to define in the Azure pipelines. And the second one is like Azure SSIS integration runtime, which basically provides the environment that is required to run the SSIS packages. This Azure SSIS package is like an integration service environment in which we can execute our existing legacy SSIS packages as is. Coming to this Azure or like self-hosted integration runtime, we can create two types of integration runtime based on the network environment. With this Azure integration runtime, we have an option to connect to various serverless compute or like external data stores that can be accessible globally. That means which are not beyond any virtual network or not on any on-premise network. And if you want to connect to any data store that is behind any firewall or like virtual network, or if the data store is in on-premise network, then you need to go with self-hosted option through which you will be able to establish a connection to your on-premise data source as well. In order to create Azure integration runtime, let me click on Azure and then we'll continue here. So here we need to define the name for this Azure integration runtime, demo IR. It will be completely managed by Azure and we just need to choose the region that is needed for us. And if you choose auto resolve, then the IR environment or like an IR compute environment will be fetched automatically based on the data stores we define. Let us say we have something in West Europe and we have destination in West Europe. Then automatically what Azure will do is like it will get an IR for you by default from West Europe so that the transformation and the data movement will happen very quickly. And if you are going to have it in your own region, then you can define your own region. And these are all the regions that are available for you to create this integration runtime. So for this demo purpose, I'm creating this resource in West Europe. So if I go to the virtual network tab, uh, for now I'm going with the disable option, which is like default option. And then you can define like what is the compute type. Like if you're going with like normal workloads like data movement and everything, you can go with the general purpose compute type. And you can choose how many CPUs, like how many cores you need to have it in your integration runtime. It will it will increase the compute power that is needed for your integration purposes. For now, I'm going with the core count as 4, which is the default one. And this is like time to live option in which like after this particular duration, this IR will be going to deallocated or like sleep mode so that you can save your expenses. Once I choose all these options, I can simply click on create, which will create an Azure integration runtime for me here. So once it got created, I can see it in the integration runtime list. By default, whenever you create an Azure Data Factory instance, you will be getting an auto resolve integration runtime, which is like an integration runtime that is being offered by Microsoft Azure as a default integration runtime. So once I click here, you will be seeing the same options that we choose when we are creating the other integration runtime. So if you want to see the monitor, if you want to see the stats about this integration runtime, you can just simply click on this monitor tab where you can see the status of the integration runtime and what is the type, like if it is like Azure or like self-hosted, and what is that, and the region where it got deployed. And if you want to see the activities that got executed under this integration runtime, you can see it in the activities tab where you can find all the pipeline name and the activity name, like when it got started and how far, like how much duration it got executed in this integration runtime. So this is about like integration runtime, which is being offered by Azure. So with this integration runtime, I can connect to all the globally accessible data stores. Those are like Azure storage, if it is like Azure SQL, and any globally accessible resource. And if I want to create something in a private network, then I need to go with self-hosted integration runtime where I can define my own integration runtime in my own network. So basically, when we have the self-hosted integration runtime, we can connect to all the data stores that are behind any network firewall. Let us say I'm having some SQL server on my on-premise network and I want to connect to the SQL server from the Azure Data Factory. Then I cannot establish a connection to the on-premise SQL server from the auto-resolve integration runtime, as the firewall will restrict the traffic that is coming from outside the network. So in order to connect to the Azure Data Factory, we need to have something called self-hosted integration runtime, which is nothing but like a gateway where we will be installing something in the virtual machine that we are going to procure in our own network. I will be covering this in the further videos to explain it in a much better way. So for now, this is all about like Azure integration runtime and what are all the three different type of integration runtime that is being offered by Microsoft to serve the data integration nodes. Thank you. Thanks for watching this video.